Yeah, I mean, I think from the jump, it'd just be great to hear the 50 duck story. Catch everybody up. Just for everybody's knowledge, Greer Smith is the founder of 50 Ducks. We go way back to fraternity brothers at the University of Georgia. Plenty of good stories there, but I think right now what we're most concerned with is the story of 50 Ducks. So yeah, just get people up to speed.
For sure, man. So we started this started as an idea 2.5 years ago. Me and my dad were in Venice, Louisiana. Love to hunt, big duck hunter. Family is. It's always been a great way to spend time with my dad, my grandfather, my cousins, my uncles. We're in Venice, Louisiana. We go every year in early January. We had a guide who would not have been a damn good guide, and he drove us up and got us stuck on a mud flat. We were stuck there all day, and so we were just waiting for the tide to change, kind of sitting there looking up. And we go every year, and some year the ducks are there, and some years they're not. So we ask the question everybody asks, which is, why is that? Where are the ducks? Why are they here now? Why aren't they there last year? And that sent me down a rabbit hole, and I got into learning about state agencies, nonprofits, organizations, research groups that use GPS telemetry devices to track the movement of birds, and specifically ducks, geese, thunder swans, cranes, stuff like that. Started reaching out to these guys to just look at some of the data myself, just because I was curious, how it worked. And a bunch of these groups were super kind about it, and they're like, "We're super excited. You're excited about it." But for the most part, that data is not released to the public until it is in a doctoral thesis or a master's paper, or if it's used by U.S. Fish and Wildlife for bag limits, building predictive models, and they do all sorts of great stuff with it. I mean, but it's not accessible to the public. And I thought if I cared, I'm sure other people would care as well. And I thought that this would be a great way to unite bird watchers and duck hunters, and as well as a great tool for early childhood education, because it's very tangible to see a duck moving great distances and think, I want to know more about that. Click a link, and next thing you know, you're being taught without knowing you're being taught.
And you were a teacher at the time, is that right?
That is true. This was shortly after I had left the teaching world. I was in corporate America at that point, but I did teach briefly right out of college. So always really been drawn to the educational aspect of it.
Yes.
So we went down a rabbit hole of trying to find somebody that was doing this or that wanted to do this. Found two great nonprofit partners that we've been working with to kick this thing off. One's Tierra Davis, which is a nonprofit out of Oaxaca, Mexico. And the other is the Jack Miner Foundation in Kingsville, Ontario, who were the first people in North America to put on aluminum leg bands all the way back to 1908. Got them on board, and we're kicking it off this year. We banded our first 25 mallards in Kingsville, Ontario with Jack Miner this year. Took about a year and a half for them to get permitting for all of this. We're going to band another 25 this year. And on the 50 Ducks website, we are live streaming, with big air quotes, the movement of these birds. You can log on there right now, and you can see where all the Jack Miner birds are. And, that's just the start until we start banning more birds in more places. Set it up.
Cool.
Condensed version of what's going on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so how does the live streaming work? What's sort of like the tech behind it?
Sure. The main problem that everyone immediately thinks to is, oh, I'm going to kill that bird. I want to go to where that bird is and kill it. I can kill it, a trophy bird. Right. No, I'm not naive to that. And so there's a lot that goes into that not happening. The way it works is we put on a device it's a company out of Lithuania, ornithology and telemetry appliance. And the backpack gives us all sorts of cool information. It gives us the GPS data point, gives you flight speed, altitude, 3-axis acceleration, temperature, a bunch of stuff like that, right? And with that, you can deduce just a wealth of information. We take it, we run it to our back end, we put it on the website in a limited capacity, so you can't trophy hunt the birds. So we have a limited zoom on all your live birds, and we randomize the data. So what you see, and we put it on a 24-hour time delay. So what you see is kind of where a bird was yesterday. But it's good enough. Like we had a bird fly 400 miles last week. It's the one that you got the email from, Buzz.
Right.
We let classrooms name all the birds to make it more, human for kids. But the way it works is it's on a 24-hour time delay. We limit your zoom, and then the birds location is semi-randomized. So you can see the bird is in southern New York, right? Or it's in northern Pennsylvania. And that's about the extent of the, of the information you get that you can see on the platform. And then after 120 days, once the bird is gone and the season's over, all of the data is released, and you can see where the bird was within 3 feet. So 2-tiered
That's
system
awesome.
there.
And so what are some of those tidbits? Like what's some of the craziest data that you've got that you've seen? I mean, the email that I pinged you about, you had a bird flying, 60 miles an hour, 2,200 feet of altitude, like that's just absolutely mind-boggling. What are some of those tidbits or like, crazy stuff that's really opened up your eyes?
Man, it's fun. The stuff we're doing at Jack Miner is just kicking off, and so Buzz, the mallard, also Mallard 23, whatever you want to call it. Buzz flew 400 miles overnight, left at 11 p.m., landed the next day in northern Pennsylvania at 8 in the morning. And last year, was going 60, 70 miles an hour. Pretty neat stuff there. We banded some teal with our partners in Mexico last year to make sure this whole thing would work so we could build our back end. Fat Daddy was our first banded blue-winged teal. Fat Daddy was banded in Toluca, Mexico, which is just outside Mexico City. Over the course of 18 hours, that bird flew right at 1,000 miles into Texas. That bird got up and was going 90 miles per hour, and he's at 10,000 feet. So and when they do that, they circle and they get up and they get a strong tailwind going behind them, of course.
Yeah.
That's why they get up so high when they do these long range movements. But I never would have guessed they could get that high or go that fast. And another neat tidbit we've seen is that almost all of the big migratory movements are done at night. Almost all of them. Yeah.
Super, super interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think you said, the majority of ducks spend what percent of their time on the ground? What was it?
So with Buzz so far, we're at 5% of the 1,100 GPS points that we've gotten so far in the 50 days that he's been GPS tagged. I think there's 60 of them for flight points. So that's 5% of its life has been spent in flight, and that's a pretty limited sample so far. But for context, those blue-winged teal from last year, they transmitted for about 9 months, and it was about 2% for them. Wow, 2% of their life was spent in a flight movement, and we define that as flying or moving at more than 5 kilometers per hour. So it's slamming on the water. It's not moving really.
Yeah. Well, how was the Mexico trip? Because you told me about that. It was it seemed just so cool. To go down and meet your partners and everything. So what was that like? How do you what was that trip like, and how are you catching these birds and releasing them, and like what's that whole process?
It was super cool. So I've been down to Mexico now twice. I went down to a International Bird Observatory Conference, which was in Veracruz, which is on the Gulf, pretty far down south, kind of near Guatemala down there. That was the first time I ever met Manuel Grossolet, who is our partner down there. We had been...
Yeah. Just tell us about that whole relationship.
So Manuel runs the group called Tierra Davis, means World of Birds, is its translation, and they're a nonprofit group with 12 banding sites across Mexico, where they band songbirds, shorebirds, pelicans, and some ducks, and they're just normal banding, aluminum leg bands, right? Manuel, I reached out to the Tierra Davis information website, email online. I just sent an email, and then Manuel responded within 10 minutes.
That's epic.
And said, yes, we want to be involved. And so we started, texting and calling for 6-8 months, trying to get this whole thing figured out. Went down there to the bird conference, which he was hosting, met him there. He's a great guy. He's originally from France, moved to Mexico, and he's been there he's probably in his 50s. He moved down there when he was in his early 20s. He's been banding birds, working for the state, working as a consultant ever since. He's banded everything from Black Hawk eagles to pelicans, ducks, hummingbirds, and everything in between. So he's been incredible to get to know. The only problem we have with each other is English is his third language. He speaks French, he speaks Spanish, he speaks English.
As
And I got a and I got a pretty thick accent as well. When we can't understand each other on the phone,
that's a
but
little
we text, and but that once we get together, we can piece it all together. But oh, Manuel's great, love him. We went to Baja California in La Paz
wow.
this past year and banded a few teal down there together. So
Mhm.
he came up and banded with us in Jack Miner. He's kind of world renowned in this small world of bird banding. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, you got back from that trip and it seemed pretty special, just like being down there and everything. Cause like I remember with Captain, I had this moment where, I was 110 miles offshore out of Galveston, fishing the floating rigs in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico for tuna. And, I was just out there and it's just 360 degrees of ocean, no other soul to be seen. And it was just one of those like pinch me moments where it's like, oh my gosh, like, am I really doing this? Still, it's all sort of come together. So was
right.
that trip, kind of that for you where it was like a ton of work, behind the laptop and then you get to go down there and, get with
A
the birds
hundred,
and everything?
100%. Yeah, you couldn't have put it, any better. There's a 90% of this is done, in this sunroom that you're looking at now, where I'm just looking at 3 monitors and I'm not talking to other people, and we're just trying to figure out the back end. And that's great. I mean, that's what I signed up for. But to go from a concept to a real thing that everyone can see, it was rewarding. It was rewarding to band our first birds down there. It was rewarding to see how excited Manuel got about the whole thing and to kind of kick it off. And so that was one of those great aha moments. And then the only, not problem, but the thing when you do it with Mexico is you're tracking them in reverse, because most people care about their fall movements.
Right, right.
When you band them down there, you're banding them in the spring, and so you're watching them migrate north. So you're watching them migrate, and then they come back south. The ones that live multiple years. But you're doing it in reverse, and so having someone in Canada or in the northern United States, you got to be able to have that too, where you can band them, in the breeding grounds where they're going up here. So this past trip in mid-September, where Manuel came to Jack Miner, and it had taken them a year and a half, 2 years to get a permit through Canadian Wildlife Service to do this. That was the moment where I was convinced it was going to work, and we were at least going to get it off the ground and get to try and see if we could make a difference in the world of conservation. So that was it was 2 months ago, and that's really relit the fire to get this thing going.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably more fun to band ducks in the spring in Mexico than up in the Arctic Circle, right?
I have never been, and I hope to never go to the Arctic Circle. Luckily, Kingsville is on the same line as Detroit, so it was 75, and we were banding birds up there in September. It was very pleasant, but the margaritas were better in Mexico, that's for sure.
There you go. Yeah, the truth comes out. Um,
But
well, I mean, speaking of the Arctic Circle, you had some birds and you were sharing some information about that. I don't know exactly what species, I don't recall, but there were some birds that were like flying over to Russia, right, and then crossing the Sea and coming back, and then going down south. Like, what was that like?
so that's another part of this platform that we're getting going too. We have the birds that our nonprofit partners and us band, or just them, and we use their data, right? And we help fund these studies. And then we also have acquired and compiled 1,350 different birds from 21 species over the course of the last 20 years that were banded by U.S. Fish and Wildlife, state departments, all sorts of stuff. It's 13 million move points. And so
Wow.
we've compiled all of that data and we've put it on our historical duck tracker. And some of those birds are snow geese, pintails, and the snow geese all breed in the Arctic tundra. So those birds are going way the hell up north, coming back. Some of them go to central Mexico. We've done some posts on some of those snow geese that have traveled 41,000 miles, over 3 years. There's some pintails that were banded in the Sacramento Valley that went into Siberia and back. And that's what we're talking about trying to get people more interested. Like, that's super cool to watch. That's super cool to see. And it's super cool to read about. And imagine if you could watch it in real time, when some of this is happening. Because we have plans this spring to ban snow geese in Mexico. And a snow geese is a super long-lived bird. It's super smart. And they will all go up into the tundra and then come back somewhere right across all 4 flyways, and so it will be super fun to watch those birds migrate as well.
It's so, so cool. Well, so how do you compare it? So like, the IGFA and Stanford University, they run a tagging program for billfish, and they just announced the results of that program. There was one striped marlin, I think it was that was satellite tagged off the northern coast of New Zealand, and then it popped up by Easter Island, I think it was. Crazy, crossing the Pacific Ocean. How do you compare, your program with 50 ducks to that sort of thing?
It's a little it's similar in that it's coming from a place of knowledge and getting more people involved,
Mhm.
because that's the ultimate goal of this. It's all being used for scientific research, right? Like all of our studies go into research topics that I play no part in.
Mhm.
Um, but our difference is the wealth of information that we are making open source to the public, and it doesn't constitute publication, but to log on in real time and see where these ducks are, it humanizes it. It makes it feel real, and it's something you can do every day instead of waiting for the results to come out where these birds are. It's similar to OSearch,
Mhm.
which
Yeah,
is
with the sharks.
with the sharks, the sea turtles, and the dolphins. It's very similar to them um, in that respect. 50 Ducks comes at it from a different angle where the whole platform is free for teachers that use it in the classroom. So if there are any teachers listening to this, shoot me an email. We'll get you a free account. And we've had really good success with that so far, getting a bunch of classrooms signed up through the first couple of months here.
Mm.
Um, and then it's a membership for you and me and for your casual observer, and all that money goes right back into funding future projects, funding this project, and give back programs to our nonprofit partners. So it's a fundraising tool. It's a way to get more people involved, and that's kind of the angle we're coming at it from.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm just curious, like how you balance all of it, so all of the different use cases, right? And so there's, science and conservation, but you came up with the idea, as you said, down in Venice, duck hunting in the blind, right? So
Right.
how do you balance that sort of thing?
Well, truth be told, is I mean, I'm no wildlife biologist at all, and I know as much as your super dedicated duck hunter, and no more. And so we have some really great partners, like at the University of Windsor, Dr. Oliver Love. He's running the scientific study on these birds that are banned in Canada. And so they're using this data to see how greenhouse light pollution may or may not affect movements of mallards and Canada geese. So that's the scientific wing of this whole thing.
Mhm.
Um, we have funded the use of the trackers. We have funded the purchase of these trackers, which is very expensive, that we then use the data. We repurpose it for our needs. They use it for their needs, and everybody wins. I play no part in the scientific, aspect of it besides, if they need some help with, anything I can do. But for the most part, that's not my part in this thing. My part in this thing is getting it to kids. My part in this thing is raising money for it.
Mhm.
And so you just have to have different people with different objectives all working, together for the
Yeah.
same end goal.
Super cool. Well, what's the outlook on on duck season here? I mean, it's November 14th. We're sitting down.
Yep.
What are you guys seeing? What's the outlook for the different flyways and everything?
For sure, man. It's still pretty early for our birds that we banded in Kingsville. It's still, I mean, it's 50 degrees in Kingsville right now. Like, so those birds don't have to move. Our first large scale migratory movement from those first 25 birds banded was last week. And they probably won't be really moving until late November, early December.
Hmm.
Um, it's pretty warm. It's pretty dry in the prairies. It's starting to cool off a little bit, and it's starting to kick off. Now it's getting to be close to time where some of the birds are going to start moving. The reports I've had from some of my friends up there is a lot of birds in Canada, not a lot of birds in the Dakotas right now. But I mean, that can all change at the drop of a hat. I'm going Tuesday to Wyoming to go duck hunt. So hopefully it's going well when I get up there.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. I mean, given the data that you guys are collecting, it really can, change overnight. You get a bird flying, hundreds of miles,
Right.
and boom, it's on. I mean, yeah, I was just in Caldwell, Texas, east of Austin last week, and I don't know what it was. You know, I hardly know any of this stuff. But you know, there's a big V of you know, geese or something, you know, flying you know, like hundreds of them, you know, flying down just right overhead. So cool to see. But yeah, it seems like it's starting to go, but still pretty hot down here in Texas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sure is. I've done. I've become friends with the guys in Knox City, the Stanfield Outfitters, and I was talking to them, and they say a bunch of their geese start showing up early mid-November, and then the ducks. It's just,
Mhm.
you know, it just completely depends. And you have daylight birds, which migrate um based on the time of day, based on how much sunlight there is, your daylight birds, and then you have birds that migrate because they have to because it's cold. And so they fall into different categories of when they start moving. And that's part of the fun with 50 ducks is like we don't have a set. You're not gonna watch 1,000 birds migrate on my platform ever, but you can watch 50, right? Like that's
Yeah.
the thing. And so you can take a small subset and deduce out from that,
Mhm.
you know, what could be happening with greater numbers.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. Well, sweet. I mean, anything else to touch on? Any you know, words of wisdom or anything like that?
I don't have any words of wisdom, but I want to know what's going on with Captain. I hear there's some big developments going on these days. It seems like, I'll be honest with you, I look at the Captain website every now and then to check on, you know, checkout processes and all sorts of stuff like that you got to deal with an online company. And every time I look at it, it's getting bigger and bigger and better and better.
Appreciate that. Well, yeah, I mean, same to you guys. I mean, it's just so awesome to see. But yeah, I mean, things are going great for us. You know, we're getting deeper into hunting, and starting to, you know, do more there, which has been great. You know, we launched last fall, and just, you know, doing more. So yeah, I mean, those bookings are starting to come in. Those guides are excited. But yeah, I mean, what we've been hearing from our guides, you know, is yeah, that you know, the birds are just starting to move. You know, it's like you said, super early. It's been a pretty warm year, it seems. And so yeah, you know, it's we're just at the precipice, it seems like. So couldn't be more timely for us to touch base.
What's the next big trip you got on your calendar?
Man, I don't know if I have any big trips coming up. Nothing on the docket right now. You know, honestly, just kind of heads down, getting ready. I mean, the big news is this media deal. So you know, we're gonna be doing a lot with that and running some TV ads next year, which is gonna be a lot of fun. But
Man, that'll be fun.
yeah, yeah.
Are you gonna be the voice of Captain, or y'all gonna hire a good looking guy to do it?
We'll see. I mean, hopefully, yeah, we can find a better looking face to put behind or put in front of the cameras. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see about that. Yeah, maybe I'll you know, be popping up on your TV screen here soon.
You gotta turn it into Jonathan the Brand. It ought to be you behind the screen.
I love it. You don't have to twist my arm. Um, well, cool, Greer. Yeah, I mean, it's great touching base. You know, everything that you guys are doing is awesome. You know, excited to see where the platform goes and everything. But yeah, it's been great. Appreciate the
Yeah,
time.
man. Well, if there are any teachers out there, this is how I finish all these. If there are any teachers out there, shoot me an email, greer@50ducks.com. We have a bunch of built plug and play lesson plans that we've, you know, coordinated with the folks across the continent who are doing, you know, waterfowl lesson plan building. A ton of resources on there that I can direct you to, and then the tracker is completely free for educators. If you're just a casual observer and you want to watch this, it's super cool. 50ducks.com. I got an app launching in 2 weeks, and that'll really change the game for us too.
What's the app gonna be like?
You know, I always wanted to be more and more and more. Version one is going to be bare bones, but it's going to make it super mobile friendly because right now
Mhm.
it's built for the desktop, and you know we all know everybody's on their phone all the time. But it'll have leaderboards.
No way.
You know what ducks should move the most in 7 days, 30 days, historical movements. It'll have all the fun maps on there. We're going to get into animations where you just hit play and watch them, you know, move. Yeah, and a ton of stuff that will make it better for kids and for, you know, you and me as well.
Yeah, some of the heat map stuff that you guys are doing, that's pretty awesome. A lot of pretty colors on the map.
Gotta love a pretty color. We all do.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a short attention span these days. Gotta do what you can to draw some eyes.
What's the feedback been like from kids in the classroom?
Man, it's been super rewarding, especially for groups that get to name a bird. It has an immediate effect on the kids caring about, you know, your bird.
Mhm.
Like I sent the group in Lebanon, Missouri, who named Buzz. Their mascot is Buzz, right? So they named it Buzz. And I sent that guy an email, and he was fired up about it. He posted on his Facebook, like all of his kids are looking at it. They're talking about it in the classroom. And so that's been super rewarding. And we're still in the early phases, so still working through some of the stuff. But, we got to figure out a way where we can have more classrooms, because you can only name so many of them. So we got to figure out a way to kind of humanize it for the classrooms that come in now that, we don't have any more birds to name.
Right.
So got to work through that.
What are some of your favorite names in addition to Buzz?
I got a hysterical list of names. We've got Pickles. Pickles the goose. So we're banning the geese in the next 2 weeks. So none of the geese are on there yet, but we're gonna ban the geese in the next 2 weeks. We're gonna have Pickles the goose, Gilbert, Rowdy the roadrunner. We've got a Min. We have Bill Nye, the science guy, the Donald Duck, Drake, Finn, Asteroid Destroyer 5. Hey, the Mark Twain School in Georgia, lower school class came up with that one. That one made me laugh the most.
We're doing Mark Twain justice.
Jelly Donut. So you get a bunch of different names, and no name is bad when a kid sends it in. So
yeah, epic. Well, cool, dude. Excited to keep in touch on everything, and 50 ducks, 50 ducks, 50 ducks.